Wait a minute. Please continue, Fasrul.
Ya. Terima kasih Bapak Ibu sekalian. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Bapak Ibu, ketemu lagi kita hari ini, hari kedua atau hari terakhir dari TOT kita, yang mana hari ini kita akan lebih banyak nanti mendiskusikan tentang bagaimana menghadapi kondisi-kondisi tertentu, khususnya pandemi yang saat ini sedang kita alami. Harapan kita seperti kita sudah diskusi kemarin, hari ini akan lebih interaktif dari hari kemarin, sehingga training kita benar-benar bisa bermanfaat satu sama lain. Jika ada pertanyaan dari salah satu, otomatis akan menjadi pembelajaran juga buat teman-teman yang lain. Harapan kita bisa benar-benar interaktif dan Pak Jayanta akan merespon setiap ada pertanyaan dari Bapak Ibu sekalian. Silahkan nanti seperti tadi Pak Januar sudah jelaskan, ditanyain nggak harus dalam bahasa Inggris Bapak Ibu sekalian, bisa dalam bahasa Indonesia dan bisa juga di kolom chat, serta nanti Pak Jayanta akan merespon itu. Kita akan coba membantu untuk mentranslate kepada Pak Jayanta. Kita di sini ada Mbak Dinda dan Mbak Weni yang selalu membantu kita. Terima kasih. Saya pikir saya kembali ke Pak Jayanta. Please Pak Jayanta, the floor is you now.
Thank you very much. So I think we just like Fazrul also may have mentioned, we changed a little bit of the ground rules to make this more interactive, so that last time we took the questions at the end, but this time we after each slide we are going to take a few minutes and take some questions. Is that correct, Fazrul?
Yes, Pak. Yeah.
Yeah.
Especially right. For the verbal questions, they will wait when you end in each slide. But if they want to give the questions on the chat, they may go anytime they want.
Right. So when questions come on the chat, when I'm doing the presentation, I may not see the chat, but right. So just inform me. That's about all.
Yes.
Then I'll take it there.
Okay.
Right. So good afternoon, everybody, and it's good to be back again. I hope the day in between was helpful for us to think about what we heard, what we learned, what we shared. Some of you asked some very good questions. So I hope that the day in between was useful to refocus and think about what we did. So saying that, let's move on to today's activity. And let me share my screen with the PowerPoint. Right, so let's do a quick, very quick recap of what we did on day one. So if I go right back to the start, we spoke about the objective, what were we going to do, and yesterday's objective was basically to look at how we can help trainers transition and help move from microsector enterprises to supporting SMEs, larger enterprises in the 50 to 300 range of employees. So that was more the focus of yesterday. And today's focus is the second one you see here, to provide an insight as to how support may be provided to enterprises to adapt to a new normal for survival and growth and sustainability. Right, so that is our focus today, but certainly questions from yesterday's also we can look at. So yesterday we touched on, we looked at the SCORE modules. We went into a little more detail on module 3 and module 4 as requested by Januar, so that's going to help you. So we looked at what is the core of SCORE, and this core of SCORE is going to continue today as well. So we looked at areas in module 3, which is productivity, cleaner production. So in that We looked at what is the relationship between input and output. Then we looked at what is cleaner production. We looked at lean manufacturing. We spoke about waste. Waste is the real issue that we find that happens in manufacturing and service organizations, but very easy to identify in manufacturing. And to help us remember these 8 areas, we said there is an acronym called Tim Woods. So under that, we said transportation, inventory, motion, waiting, overproduction, overprocessing, defects and errors, and skills, underutilized resources. And these include human resources as well as the resources of equipment and machinery. So what we have to remember is that we got to look at reducing waste, because waste does not add value to the customer. We looked at improving CP, and we looked at the areas of what are the target areas like energy, water, and materials. Those are the ones that where we can eliminate and improve. And the idea was to reduce pollution and waste. We looked at the strategy of reducing, reusing, recycling, and if we still have something remaining, how do we dispose that safely? We looked at how we can construct a waste matrix for process and non-process, hazardous and non-hazardous items, so that when you go to an enterprise, you can use this matrix to help them think based on the industry that you're going to support and help the company, okay? We looked at other tools and techniques that are going to help the lean and the cleaner production method. So you all are very familiar with the 5S campaign, and that was something that we can use. We looked at the Ishikawa diagram or the fishbone diagram, and when we identify a problem, when we identify a waste, how can we go about eliminating that waste? So you know about these because you have gone through the 5 modules already. We looked at something called TPM or total productive maintenance, and why should companies look at TPM? And to make it simple, we looked at what this maintenance is, and there are 4 areas which it supports, like preventing downtime, avoiding spills and defects, make efficient use of energy inputs, and increasing equipment, the use of equipment, the time period which it can be used. And we looked at what are the things that are going to be get addressed: breakdowns, reduced speed, setting up an adjustment, defects and rework, idling and stoppages, the yield loss. So these are things that if you adopt TPM, it's going to help the company to eliminate or reduce. There are many ways to measure productivity, and we looked at some of those things that we can use in measuring different productivity in different ways and appropriately. We looked at HR in terms of workforce management. So we looked at things like why does SCORE have HR? What are HR goals? And then we looked at the 5-step strategy for HR, and we looked at what are the ILO's declarations on fundamental principles and rights at work. We spoke about some examples of how these can be applied in factories. Then we said we need to look at the legal, local regulatory compliances, and when you go to a company, what you need to do. We spoke of, I summarized what are the key HR practices, policies, and procedures that one needs to look at in the companies. And these are whether you're doing service or manufacturing, these areas of HR are very important and needs to be addressed. We looked at training, development, and motivation, and we looked at how if one of those factors, training, development, or motivation, how we put some figures and we realized that if motivation is not there, your whole equation collapses, okay, or your productivity really drops. So answering the question from what you all had also given in terms of the survey that we had submitted, what are the other things that SCORE has that can help enterprises? So SCORE has a suite of different modules, and we can use these appropriately based on the program that we are doing. Then we came to the key area of looking at micro enterprises and moving to SMEs. So here we looked at what are the differences between micro and SME, and what are the similarities, and what we should really focus on. So I hope you understood that very well, because then it makes it more simple for us to move from one to the other, back and forth, so that we focus on what needs to be looked at. Then we looked at what are the challenges that we face, and these challenges are actually from what you mentioned in your the answer to the questions that we had provided. And we spoke about solutions, and I hope you listed some of these and you thought about some of these as part of your homework. So that's by and large what we did the other day. And finally, we spoke about how can trainers be prepared or get prepared to go and support SMEs. And here we had a few areas that we spoke about. I gave a lot of examples of how you need to prepare yourself to go and support larger enterprises. So we had some good questions, and also that was a good interactive session that we had yesterday, the previous day. Right. So that's where we are at today. We have done a very quick recap so that I brought to mind what we had already spoken about. And let me just ask you at this point, if you have, maybe we can take about 3 quick questions if you have anything to ask.
Silakan Bapak Ibu sekalian, jika ada hal yang mau ditanyakan perihal apa yang sudah kita diskusikan 2 hari sebelumnya, silakan sebelum Pak Jayanta masuk ke materi hari ini. Tidak ada, Bapak Ibu sekalian. Oke, Pak Jayanta.
Yeah.
We have no any question yet. No, maybe later.
Right. So I just
continue.
like to quickly, the other day Judith was asking, I think it was Judith, she asked me about the circular economy. And so what I want to clarify here is to say that looking at the new way of doing things moving forward in terms of the circular economy and elimination of waste, the process that is is being discussed, that is being implemented, and large companies are still doing it, is, they buy stuff and they inputs and they make something, or they use these inputs, and then what remains, they find methods of reusing that, and then they remake something with that, and then they recycle that. And what gets recycled, then again, they put it back into production with more inputs. So by and large, what the circular economy is trying to do is to eliminate or come down to eliminating what we call waste. So just a clarification to add to what I had said the previous day. Right. So with that, let me move on, and let's look at today's what we have in store for today. And we are talking about setting up for the new normal. Now, why are we talking about this new normal, which we were talking about 2 years ago? Simply because, the global pandemic has changed the way we do a lot of things. The way we go to work, the way we stay at home, how we work from home, how we work in the office, how we work in the factory, even how we go and do our marketing, our shopping, our grocery shopping, our banking, how children have to go to school, trying to fly around the world for business. I think, first rule, if not for the pandemic, I would have been personally there in Indonesia, and we would have been doing this program all together in a room, I guess. But so this is also a new normal, and trying to get used to this is also one of the new ways of doing things. So, we are talking, something I want to say is that we are talking about the new normal, and most people in their minds, what they are thinking is, this is COVID-19, and okay, now people are getting vaccinated, and then COVID. Now there are drug companies that are making tablets so that you don't have to go to hospital. You can stay at home. It's like when you get a headache, you take to paracetamol or aspirin or something like that. So now we are going to get some tablets to take for COVID. So things are going to be back to normal, we think, in the next few months, or at least by the end of next year. But what we also have seen is that when they think they have a solution for one strain, COVID comes up in two different other new strains. And again, we are back at home, and again, we can't go to work, and then there are new issues. So like that, some of the scientists who do this kind of research and stuff like that are telling us, now it's COVID-19, but in another few years, there's going to be something worse than COVID. So again, we are going to have to change and stay at home. So this is the reason we are calling this the new normal. Because we are not just focusing because of COVID-19 or the current pandemic, but even from things we have learned, the way business has changed, the way things operate, we are going to have to come to some kind of new equilibrium, a new balance, and a new way of looking at things. Everything is not going to come back to where it was as of 2019. 2022 is going to be a little different. So that is the reason we are looking at this and in a more serious way. And there are 2 points here that I have put down. One is we need to examine the enterprise and its interactions internally and externally in light of the constantly changing business ecology. Now, here I'm saying business ecology rather than environment because it's the whole business system, everything. The whole thing is all changing, whether it's to do with buyers, suppliers, subcontractors, customers, whether local, overseas, foreign, the transport, everything is changing. So we got to look at the whole system, and here are companies to be able to meet the new changes that are always taking place on almost a daily basis. And then we need to look at, if all this is happening, if all this is changing, how might a business, we don't have concrete answers, but how might a business adapt its strategy and operations to a constantly evolving new norm? It's constantly changing. Why? Because they need to survive. Survival is not just enough, just surviving is not enough. The companies need to grow, and the companies also need to be sustainable. Now, something that we saw in a lot of companies initially, maybe the initial 6-8 months, we saw a lot of companies closing down. But as time went on, companies that were still hanging in there decided, okay, we are going to have to change a lot of things. And they started making changes, accepting what has happened. And then they started getting back to business. They started surviving. They didn't die off. They didn't close the business. They started surviving. And as the months went by, they started growing. And today, you look at the newspapers in my country, in your country, in news across the globe, you will see that a lot of companies are now registering profits. They'll say profits in the first quarter, then second quarter was better than the first quarter, third quarter has even been better than that. So companies are adapting and they are growing so that they are moving into a more sustainable mode. So that is what we talk about setting up for the new normal. Right. So let me do this slide as well. And then let me pause for a while so that you need questions, okay? Need to ask questions. So in order to do this, the first thing that a company has to do is they need to take stock of themselves. They need to do an assessment or assessments. And generally, the first thing that they need to do is find out what are the risks that are associated with the business. So it's kind of like an enterprise risk assessment. And what are we going to assess? We are going to assess the people factor. The people factor within the organization. Why are people not coming to work? What should we do with these people? Are they getting sick? Are they dying? Are they, all sorts of questions come up there about the people in the organization. And especially the organizations we work with are very labor intensive. Okay. Then we need to ask questions about the processes. The processes that we have in our business, is it suitable? Does it work? if it's not working, what is the risk of having that process in that fashion? People are standing too close, so somebody comes with a little bit of a infection, other people get it. So we really need to look at people and processes. What is happening to our profits? Are profits growing? Are the profits coming down? What really is happening to the profitability of our business? As a business entity, we cannot survive alone. We have to work with the outside world. There are partnerships. Whom are these partnerships with? We are looking at the government, for example, the ministries, the various ministries and departments that we work with, trade associations, buyers, sellers, customers, the companies that are situated around us. What are they doing? We have to work with them. What about the trade unions? What are they saying? What are the employer organizations saying? What are the chambers saying? We need all their help. Without their help, we can't. We can't just work as a single entity. So, what are the risks in these areas? How are we doing? So now these assessments, there are pre-designed assessments, like for example, the ILO ITC has an assessment like this. So you can get a ready-made one. Or you can develop your own customized risk assessment. Or it can be a hybrid of both. When I say hybrid, the easiest example to give is today, vehicles run on fuel and they run on electricity also. Hybrid, both. So you can have a pre-designed one and you can customize it to suit your organization. What is the purpose? The purpose of doing all this is to estimate. We're trying to estimate as accurately as possible the risk and vulnerability of the enterprise. Should something else happen, should there be another strain, should there be another 1 month of lockdown, what's going to happen? Can we survive? If another 10 people get sick in our company, what do we do? So we are assessing the risk. So that's what we need to do first with these enterprises. Once we do the risk assessment, then we can take some corrective actions. Okay. The next kind of assessment that it would be useful in doing is to look at the enterprise in its current status right now. The current status of the enterprise to see how we could continue in business. So here again, you can have pre-designed assessments, or you can customize your assessments. So what are we going to look at again? There are key areas. The key areas I have listed here, but underneath these key areas, there are a lot of sub areas as well, right? So we don't have time to go into a big detail about these assessments, but I'm trying to tell you what you need to focus on in helping companies move forward. So one is preparedness. How prepared are they? Have they put processes in place and are prepared? Like, for example, when workers come into the company, do we check the temperatures? Do we have areas for washing? How many times a day do you wash? How many washing stations do you have, depending on the number of workers that you have? So are you prepared for these things? What about the workforce management? Do we have identified people? If somebody is not feeling well, what happens? Who informs whom? What happens to the, we say, you know, how many days of leave should we give in a situation like this? How do we manage our workforce? Do we ask everybody to come to work every day, or can some people work from home? You know, does the whole factory and the whole office have to come to work? How do we organize our people? How do they come to work? What is the transport arrangement? Is it possible for us to now, earlier they use public transport, certain companies, what they do now are they are sending 6 buses on 6 different routes, so that, you know, they bring the people and ensure that they don't, you know, that they sit with adequate space. Otherwise, they'll, in public transport, they are sitting on top of each other. So even if somebody is careful in the factory, coming and going is a problem. So workforce management. Again, some areas under that, but that is detailed. But we need to identify and see what is our current status on this. What about our orders? What about our sales? What about our cash flows? How are these getting affected? If we talk about orders, for how many months ahead is our order book filled? Is it just only 2 weeks more or 1 month more? Or do we have 3 months worth of orders? What's happening with our sales? What are our buyers saying? What about our cash flows? Looking at the other side, what about e-commerce? Do we have, I'll go into these a little bit more detail in the slides later, but are we ready to do e-business? Does our company even have a website in the first place? How do people know we are there? Today we can't travel, we can't go to meet buyers, so how can we get orders? Do we have an e-platform ready, both for internal and external? So the purpose of this is to assess the status of the preparedness of the enterprise and to see whether they can continue in business. So is your preparedness and business continuity, are you in a high state, are you in a medium state, or are you in a low state? So it's just an assessment to know, to look at the key areas of your company and know where you stand at present. So, okay, so I can, if anybody has any questions to ask, we can take a few minutes and discuss that. Fasrul, anyone?
Silakan Bapak Ibu sekalian, jika ada yang ingin didiskusikan, ditanya atau pendapat apa saja bisa, agar training kita bisa lebih interaktif mungkin dan berbagi pengetahuan dengan teman-teman yang lain. Silakan Bapak Ibu sekalian. Silakan Pak Is, Pak Wahyu.
I think that's a good way of putting that,
Ibu Triana
because
is coming, Pak.
Yeah, sharing your experience also, others will benefit, you know.
Yeah.
Please.
Silakan Ibu Triana.
Ya, dari pengalaman saya waktu membawakan skor BCP, memang di levelnya level mikro ya Pak, bukan SMI begitu. Mereka sebenarnya yang paling memerlukan itu adalah meningkatkan penjualan, sehingga waktu itu memang paling banyak disukai modul terkait dengan pemasaran digital begitu. Kemudian mereka kurang merasa perlu untuk memahami manajemen risiko. Jadi mereka nggak bisa menangkap buat apa sih kita melihat risiko seperti itu. Oh, risiko juga udah kelihatan depan mata sebegitu, bahwa ini pandemi ini membawa turunnya penjualan. Nah, bagaimana Pak Jayanta bahwa kita membedakan tuh ya program untuk seperti ini new normal itu untuk level mikro juga untuk dibedakan dengan untuk level SMI. Terima kasih.
Right. Yes. Thank you. So I think that is a very, very pertinent question to ask. Now, I don't know, Fazrul may be the best person to give us an answer for this. I don't know whether Janua is around, but Fazrul, has the ILO developed some form of risk assessments, just like something like what I spoke about, which is available to be conducted for the micro sector in Indonesia? I'm talking about Indonesia.
I will need to check it, Pak, because what I know now in the ILO, they have programs to promote how to apply how compliant with the facing the COVID-19 protocol. But what I know, that program is not specifically targeted the size of the company.
Right.
They apply it in the mostly they apply in the labor intensive sector of the companies now, not specific the size. Yeah.
Right. So Triana, what I would say is that when we say micro, I'm talking about companies that I think are like less than 25, 30 people. So some of these questionnaires or these assessments that have been already prepared for the large labor-intensive enterprises, they can be taken and tailor-made or customized in a simple way so that the small businesses can actually make use of it. Now, if you were to tell me, I have 10 micro enterprises, can you come and do a risk assessment? I would have to look at those 10 and see how I might be able to customize what is there for big ones. How can we make that more compatible and suitable for the micros? So that's, I think, like the answer that I can give, because there doesn't seem to be a very specific one that Indonesia has at this point in time. Okay, but the principle remains the same. The principle will remain the same. Okay, right. Okay, great. So we can take just one more quick question if someone has one.
Silakan Bapak Ibu sekalian, jika masih ada pertanyaan, Pak Jayanta mengajukan satu pertanyaan lagi mungkin dari Bapak Ibu sekalian. Terima kasih tadi buat Ibu Triana ya. Oke, jika tidak ada Pak Jayanta, maybe we can continue, Pak. Yeah. Maybe later if they have it.
Yeah, right.
Raise their
maybe
hands.
Later. Yeah, don't worry. Right. So let me go back to the presentation. Right. So in this new normal, there are some areas that we really need to look at. I don't know, you may have got the agenda already, but even if you didn't, don't worry. We need to look at an enterprise. Now here, I'm also focusing on the larger enterprises, because the idea is to help you move from micro to the SMEs, right? So this would be, it is important for any organization, but more easily implementable in a SME or larger organization. So here's a model which I have taken from the McKinsey's 7S model. Now you can read up the McKinsey's 7S model. It's available. You'll find books with it. You will find it on the internet. You can, it's good to know. It's a good strategy that I have been using sometimes for enterprises when I've been doing consulting, as well as in my ILO work, though also I have been using the concepts of it. Okay. So in that, there are things that they call, McKinsey identifies as hard elements. And then on the other side, there are things that you can see in the brown that are soft elements. And these are put together, or these are all linked to each other. And in the middle, we have shared values. The shared values is similar to having workplace cooperation. We need to have workplace cooperation. So if I take these one by one, the structure of the organization that we had 2 years ago may not really work today, because the way we are doing business is different. So let's say, for example, earlier, okay, we needed IT, but IT was not such an important area. So our IT usage, and we could even outsource this, and we didn't really, we just did very basic things with IT. But today, we need to have a function or a department or a section calling it IT. Because today a lot of things are, e-based, electronic based, and you've got to have the equipment and the servers and things like that. So we have to look at the structure and see whether that function needs to be created, or it needs to be expanded, or what has to be done. We need to look at in terms of decision making, how the structure should be. Those days, maybe let's say in companies, everything had to be signed off by the boss, and you could pass the paper because everybody worked in the office. There was an office, and the boss every day comes to work. But now, because of this new situation, that kind of thing may not be so possible. So what kind of structure should we have? What kind of organization structure should we have? If it is a company that has the office in one place and a factory in another place and something like that, then is the current structure good enough? Do we have to produce a matrix organization structure? Do we have to get a different kind of create another position, or do away with some of the redundant positions? So we need to look at the structure of an organization. The next thing is, we need to look at the strategy. What is our business plan? All organizations should have a business plan. If we are, let's say, for example, we are in the business of producing rubber products. We have been making something with rubber, but now suddenly we find hey, there's a good opportunity because now everybody is wearing, people need gloves. So can we now change, bring in another area, and can we start producing gloves? What should be our business plan? Are we going to get a better return than we did before? And how easy is it to shift from one to the other? So you may have been producing, let's say, a certain kind of garment, maybe shirts, but now suddenly there is a big demand for hospital gowns or something like that. So let's look at our business strategy. Let's look at our business plan. We need to change these things. What about the systems? Are the systems that we had good enough? We now need to look at the technical aspect and the workflow aspect. When we say technical, do we have the technology to do in order to work to fulfill our business strategy? We are working from home or we are working remote. Do we have the technical expertise and the technology required to do all this thing? How is the work going to flow? Earlier, we could, we could physically be in the factory and we know how the work used to flow. But today, is that same workflow applicable? Is it identical? Is it different? If it is different, how is it different? What needs to be done? So these are questions that you're going to have to ask your organizations. Now I know one company, they had a big car park which was used for because a lot of the managers had cars. Now people are working from home, so they don't need all that space now in the car park. They can put that area, that space in the company to better use. Right? So we got to think creatively and see, how does our workflow now operate? Then coming to the other side, we look at the soft elements. The soft elements here, we are talking of staffing. What is our HR strategy? Yesterday or day before when we did that session, we spoke about the 5 steps in HR. And one is, now we need to look at our business plan before we develop our HR plan for the year. So what kind of staffing do we need? What do we have those positions filled? Do we have people whom we can promote? Or do we have to hire people from outside? Basically, we are managing the talent within the company. Now, don't only think that this is applicable to the large enterprises, but it is also even in a small business where you have 10 people. How do we adapt? How can we look at these things and see even these 10 people, what needs to be done with them? How do they need to be reorganized? How do they need to work? So that is what we talk under staffing. Then we look at the skills, people's skills, capabilities and competencies. When we hire people, we are hiring them because of what they can do, what they are capable of. Is it in line with what the business does? Right? So do we have those capabilities and those competencies? Do we have skills matrix and things like that? If not, how do we train these people to be able to fulfill these requirements? How do we retrain these people? So we need to look at the skills. Are the skills, like for example, if I said, we're trying to make rubber gloves or latex gloves. Do we have the people who we can take from this existing production line, and can they fit into the new technology and the new production line? Looking at all this, what about management style? What about the attitude of management? Does the style of the management as it was before, is it going to help in this new situation? Do we have that flexibility? Just like we say the structure needed to be a bit flexible now. The structure we can say it's flexible, but what about the people who are managing? Are they flexible? Sometimes, I hope it doesn't happen now, and doesn't hope it happen today, is that, we plan meetings like this, and suddenly there is bad weather or there is some internet problem, and then, you can't have the meeting for whatever reason, right? Now, if the management doesn't understand that and, doesn't have that flexibility and the ability to quickly rethink, replan, then it's not going to be very helpful. So what is our management style? What is our attitude? So as I said earlier, all these things need to be shared and discussed with the people in the organization. A lot of change has to be done. Today, how many of us are using things like WhatsApp and Viber and this and all these things, to communicate with people? We are not always writing emails up and down like we did before. Now, what about the workers? Are we getting them involved? How do we keep them involved? What about the supervisors? What about the assistant managers? What about the managers? So we need to share these values across the group, across the company. And that is where we already have this wonderful tool in SCORE called workplace cooperation. We used to sit around a table. The enterprise improvement team sits around a table and we have a meeting. But some of the work that I have been doing in some of the other countries, we cannot sit around that table anymore because we can't go to the workplace. But still the EIT meets. Okay, and that is, we have devised new methods of how they communicate to their departments and sections of what needs to be done. So workplace cooperation is an ideal tool to bring, or concept to bring all these people together. So that's, in a very limited sense, to give you an idea of how we can look at these elements, the hard elements and the soft elements, and think of the enterprises that we are going to serve in the future from now on, or that we are already serving, how we can help them to rethink, the way they are doing things. So the structure, the strategy, and the flexible nature of operations is important. Okay, so does anyone have questions? We can just take maybe one or two questions.
Silakan Bapak Ibu, jika ada pertanyaan, masukan, ataupun saran atau sharing, Bapak Ibu boleh juga sharing pengalaman, silakan.
Boleh saya lagi?
Boleh, silakan Ibu Triana. Ya, silakan Ibu Triana.
Mohon maaf.
Ya.
Sebenarnya ini kan materinya menarik ya, Pak Jayanta. Ini terkait dengan sebenarnya bagaimana melakukan perubahan gitu ya. Dan yang menarik menurut saya adalah yang tengahnya itu, yaitu budaya kan, budaya common values yang di tengah-tengah. Itu yang perlu dipastikan dulu sebelum kita melakukan perubahan di aspek-aspek yang lain. Bagaimana kalau misalnya suatu perusahaan itu memang misalnya common values-nya itu belum sesuai dengan apa yang kita harapkan. Bagaimana Pak Jayanto?
Very good question. Now, whether we had COVID or we did not have COVID, right? When we go to most companies, that is the biggest problem. You see, the values are not aligned. What the boss wants done and what the boss thinks is not what the people in the production line or anywhere else might really understand. They have two different things. The boss is thinking apples, but the people at the sewing line are thinking vegetables, right? Now, to answer that, that is the best way we could do that is through SCORE. And that is why even values, developing a set of values, of course, we don't have that in SCORE, but we can put it into the SCORE program as one of the projects under the enterprise improvement team, that we should have a common set of values, right? So you would have seen, or you can internet or Google or whatever, that some of these companies have a value statement, or they say these are our values, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we need to bring that in more so now than before. We need to bring a common set of values into the company and say, this is the way we are going to work. One value we can say is that, you know, we are going to be responsive. We are going to be a responsive company, and then we can say, what does that responsive mean? If we get an email, we are going to answer that email in 24 hours or 48 hours. That is responsiveness. So that's going to be one of our values today. Otherwise, somebody will say, today is Thursday, I can answer the email on Monday, right? So, but when we say it needs to be done in 48 hours or something like that, then the person who is sending it also knows I'm going to get an answer back in such a time. Okay, so those are values, right? Any other question? Fazrul, how many people do we have today? Last time we had about 40.
Today we have 32, Pak.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So, okay. So I think the 32 will, the other 31 people will start talking a little later. Yeah, don't worry.
Terima kasih ini Pak Fazrul.
Ya,
Terima kasih
silakan Pak
kesempatannya, terutama untuk Mr. Jayandi.
Oh, Pak Wahyu.
Ya, saya Wahyudono.
Wahyu.
Pak, problemnya di kita, apalagi untuk yang mikro Pak ya, yang kelas kecil pun bisnis itu sudah jalan. Contoh ada kasus di perusahaan mainan anak-anak, dia order jalan dan dia merasa penuh loadingnya. Tapi setelah ditelusuri, perusahaan tersebut bisnis plan tidak punya, kemudian struktur organisasi terlalu sederhana, sehingga ya untuk mengukur capacity maupun capability-nya belum ada. Nah, pertanyaan saya, untuk perusahaan yang tersebut, metode yang sederhana untuk bisa mengimprove sehingga tadi capacity maupun performanya supaya lebih baik. Itu saja, Pak Wasul. Thank you.
Baik, Pak Wahyu. Pak Wahyu, Pak Jayanta akan menjelaskan dalam bahasa Inggris, tapi Mbak Weni dan Mbak Dinda akan mentranslate ke dalam bahasa Indonesia lagi. Jadi Pak
It's okay,
Wahyu
no
bisa.
problem, Pak. It's okay, no problem.
Okay.
Please.
Ya, silakan.
Okay,
Pak Jayanta.
very good question, Bayu. And this is a common problem, especially it's not only a problem in the micro. You know, if it was only a problem in the micro, that's fine. But these are problems even in the big companies sometimes, right? So, the main thing is they don't stop to think. If let's say I'm producing 10 units every day, he thinks I'm happy with producing 10 units, because when my father did this business, he produced only 7 units. So I'm now producing 10 units. But what we need to sit down with him and show him is that he can actually produce 15 units. And then we need to show him and have a discussion and explain how that 15 units might be possible. Sometimes, you know, just talking like that doesn't help, but when you talk of the money values, it goes to the head, you know. So that way, it is a long process. And then you can say, you know, when he has bought little bit of the idea, yeah, it's a good idea. Why don't we, you know, in the next 2 months, now we are making 10 units, but how about trying 12 units? What do we need to do to try 12 units? And his business plan or her business plan in a micro is not going to be like a business plan for a company that has 300 workers. But the concepts and the ideas are the same. But we go in small steps, small doses. So the process is the same. Now, when we look at, he has, let's say, 5 people working, we can say, why are these 5 people working, doing like this? If we reorganize and this person does only this, then this person sits here and does that, we might be able to improve the output. And we are only talking about improving 1 or 2 or 3 pieces output. But when he gets that idea, then he sees, there is something that can be done. So we have to be, as facilitators, we sometimes might get very irritated, we might get frustrated because this guy is not listening to what we are saying, you know. But one thing is, we have to be very, very patient with these people. There are some people who are naturally motivated and they'll be pushing you to ask, how can I get 15, not 15, how can I get 20 units, right? But those are few. The other people, you have to open their eyes gradually. And then once you get that little bit of improvement, again, this is not only common to these small micros. These are even there in the big score companies that I have been doing globally. But once they get the taste of that improvement, then their eyes open and then they do bigger things. So that's the way I think I would approach this. It's a personal relationship. Yesterday we spoke about creating that very good, close customer or the client score facilitator relationship. That's the first step. Okay.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much.
Right. So I think let's move on to the next slide. I'm glad that you're asking questions and thinking. That's the purpose of having this session. Okay. This is not just to impart some theoretical knowledge, but to to ask questions, then it becomes practical. Right. So let's move on. And right. The next one we are going to talk about is network and remotely networking. We touched on this a little bit. Today, because of this restrictions in travel and restrictions in visits and lockdowns and things like that, we need to build a network and also remotely start networking, right? We need to kind of get connected. Like you see this picture here on the top, this guy is seated at home probably, and but he is having, or just like what we are doing, I'm seated here at my home, and all of you are also probably seated at home or somewhere in your office or somewhere, and we are all connected. And so that's the way we have to look at it for companies also. Now, in order to do this, let's take, my colleagues there, my colleagues and good friends, Janua and Fazrul and Devi. If they don't have e-contacts, how would they connect all of you to this program? So, first of all, it is important for all enterprises to start looking at building e-contacts. So whether it's an email address or whether it is a telephone number, mobile number, whatnot, you know all these things better than me. You need to have the connectivity and contactability with buyers, customers, associations, you might call them sometimes competitors. All these people, you need to be able to contact them without being able to go and see them. So just the telephone also will not do, because today just trying to make a call is sometimes very, very difficult, because everybody's lines are engaged, because everybody is busy. So, but use other methods of e-contact to send a message, send a picture, show what it is like. We are not only just talking about, just talking, but also transmitting data. Like I'm sharing my PowerPoint presentation with you, something like that. So within the company, we got to have database and web presence. So one thing is a lot of these, even the small and medium companies, you will be surprised that most of them in different countries, of course, they don't have a web page. Or sometimes they'll have a web page, and when you go to the web page, what does it tell you? It only gives their name and address, and they don't even exactly tell you what they do. And that web page has been done about 5 years ago. But today you need web presence. Now you know how you order things online from the supermarket or from some supplier. So the web presence has to be there for that. The database side of it has to be developed, because you need to have your suppliers, your customers, maybe your potential customers, your employees, every single employee, even the person who sweeps, must be in your list of contacts and in that database. Because in the way things had been happening in the past, suddenly the government says, okay, we are going to shut down or lock down this area, and they take that decision at 12 midnight, because the number of cases or whatever has gone up. Now, the moment somebody gets that news, they need to be able to disseminate that to all the employees and say, you know, like if you're coming from this area, don't come because, you know, we can't go to the factory today, right? So similarly, it is important to ensure that we have the technology platform to do this. Do we have the adequate server, the adequate capacity, the correct type of technology that can handle this kind of work? Talking about technology, hardware, software, do we have not only just the server, but then if we have that server, do we have the right capacity? And if you know there are spikes, do we have electrical spikes? Do we have proper UPSs or whatever those units are to handle that situation? Otherwise, we'll invest in all this technology, and then there is lightning, and there is a storm, and everything goes. So, do we have backups? How does the backup happen? Who does the backups? How is this IT stuff done? So, we need to think about all this, and we need to also tell these companies, look, companies may not have the money or the savings to immediately start doing this. Then something has to be prioritized. What do we get first? What do we get second? What do we get third? And sometimes, in technology, we can't do ad hoc. I can't buy one thing from here and then say, okay, I'll go and buy another thing from there for that next thing. And then when we try to put it together, the IT guys tell me, this is not compatible with that. So there has to be the technology platform developed and coordinated and synchronized so that when we invest according to the funds we have or funds we can source, we do get what is most important now. But when we get the second one 3 months later, it just only improves our system, and we don't have to start doing it all over again. So compatibility is very important. So these are things that you might tell or just share with the companies that you work. Just don't run into doing things because you might make, and these are not cheap. These are very expensive stuff. And we don't need the best software in the country, but do we have the right software that is going to help our business? So these are things that we really need to look at when we network and remotely work from different locations. Not only can buyers or suppliers see our website, how do they place an order on our website? If they place an order, the moment they say send that order, how does somebody in the company respond to that? Are they going to wait till next, if today is Friday, are they going to wait till Monday to respond to that? So these are things we got to see. Then of course, the most important thing after doing all this is, or while doing all this, is training and development. Now, today, if you look at it, how I see it, I don't know how I look at it in Sri Lanka today, is that most people here have smartphones. It is only the elderly folk, like people over about 75 years or 80 years, they can't handle the smartphone. But most of the other people know how to handle a smartphone. So that itself is a good development. I don't know how it is in Indonesia. But I think, I mean, some of the African countries also that I work with, everybody seems to be having a smartphone, even if they don't have proper clothes to wear or proper food to eat. They have the smartphone. So hardware, software, training and development is very important in this process. People need to know how to do things and when to do things and what to do. So that's an important area in terms of the E area that I wanted to share. We can again go back for 1 or 2 questions.
Silakan Bapak Ibu jika ada sharing lagi atau pertanyaan.
Ya, terima kasih Pak Fasrul.
Ya, Pak Is.
Ya, Pak Jayanta. Klien kami mungkin lebih dari 90% adalah industri manufaktur ya. Dan levelnya itu kecil sampai dengan menengah. Nah, memang saat ini kita di era digitalisasi dan new normal ini memang mengharuskan kita masuk ke dalam remote control. Tetapi pertanyaan saya adalah bagaimana mengoptimalkan building e-contact di dalam manufacturing industry, Pak Jayanta. Itu saja, terima kasih. Untuk mengoptimalkan bagaimana manufacturing industry ini menggunakan building e-contact. Terima kasih.
Right. So when you say small to medium, I'm thinking these are, more than 50 people kind of enterprises. And again, here how it has to be done is that they first, you have to first create the need and tell them why it is important to build this e-contacts or e-database. Because if they don't understand the importance of it and why it is necessary, they may not be willing, or they may not be certain, may not have a need to do it. So the first thing is convincing them and telling them how this is going to be useful for them to manage and grow their business. Not because somebody else is doing it, that is not a good reason, but for them, how they are going to manage and grow their business, right? Then maybe I'm assuming that, sometimes these companies have an IT department or a section, and on the other side, some of these companies don't have the IT section or department. They only just have data entry operators. They have computers, but people are just only putting in data, right? So it needs to go beyond data entry. Data entry has to be done to input all this information, but you need to have an IT sort of thinking person of how to create this and how to construct this database and how that is accessible and to be able to be linked to the people that need to contact, let's say, buyers, or let's say suppliers, or let's say people within the enterprise. Okay, so that is what is important to be looked at. So once you create the need and show that this is really going to help, I think people will become more open to doing it. And also you can, today there are enough examples. I'm sure some of the other companies, I mean, Indonesia has done a lot of score companies, and some of these companies must be having very good databases and all the e-contacts put in these. So maybe with the help of and Janua, maybe some of these you might be able to say, I want, I have this person from my company or this company, and I would, do you know of any company that does this very well, so that I can take and show the person how this is working, right? So it's a matter of changing the mindset and explaining why it is necessary. Is that okay? Did I answer your question?
Okay, thank you, Pak Jayanta.
You're welcome, Isnanto.
Terima kasih Pak Ais. Bapak Ibu, masih ada yang ingin menanyakan mungkin? Seperti biasa Pak Jayanta mengasih untuk 2 orang atau 2 pertanyaan. Baik, jika tidak ada, mungkin Pak Jayanta, we can continue Pak. Ya.
Right. So let's move on to another important area in this. And we are talking about financial scenario building. Now, what is scenario building? Scenario building is we look at different outcomes and different situations, right? We are going to, if we are going to have, of course, I know you can't do this today, but if you're going to have a party at home, right? And let's say it's your son's or daughter's birthday, and when you ask, so how many people are going to come to this party? Says, well, Dad or Mom, I don't know. It may be 10 or it may be 25 people. Now you see, it's 2 different scenarios. If 10 people come, the amount of food that you have to cook or that you have to order is 1. But if 25 people come, the number of the food and the drinks and everything that goes with it is going to be a different thing. So it's the same thing with financial scenario building, right? So we need to look at it in terms of what runs a company. A company runs because of the customer's orders, right? What happens if we have the order book at 100%? And what happens if our order book is only 50% full? Okay, so we are looking at what financial scenario building is. We do this, and then we take decisions based on the best scenario which we think is going to happen. So looking at this, the first thing in business continuity is the order book itself. How is our order book? How many orders do we have? What kind of orders do we have? Are the orders that we are getting, are they, things that we usually produce, or are they things a little bit more easier or difficult? And the question is, if are we really having to take it because we have no orders, or can we say yes or no kind of situation? So we got to look at our order book first of all and see how many orders are there. The next thing is we got to prepare the sales and the forecasts. Now, in doing this, it's not only talking about the future, but we also have to produce and analyze what happened last year. How many companies really analyze their sales and forecasts? My experience is a lot of companies don't analyze their past. They just look at what is coming in the future and to put something together to produce those. But it is important to analyze the past. Looking at your sales, looking at how it has been each month, looking at how it has been, if it is a seasonal product. Because when you sell, also, do you get the money immediately, or do you get it after 60 days or 90 days? Okay, so analyzing the past, how does our sales happen? What is the mix? Sometimes you are not producing just one product, you are producing 5 products. How is the mix? What is the most profitable mix? We'll come to that in the next point. Here, what we are interested is looking at least 12 months of the past, at least 12 months of the past. And then looking at least 12 months of the future. And when we talk of 12 months for the future, sometimes you might say it's very difficult today to project 12 months. Okay, fine, build the 12-month scenario, but let's at least be sure of what's happening for the next 3 to 6 months. We got to have that scenario building. Otherwise, we are running, as they call it, from hand to mouth. We should not be looking at hand to mouth. Profitable product lines and product mixes. We must look at the past and see, let's assume that you are producing, let's say, in apparels, you're making 5 different things, maybe shirts, trousers, and let's say jackets or something like that. Which is more profitable? Is it to produce shirts, or is it to produce the pants or the jackets? What brings more return? Which buyers bring more return? You will find that it is more profitable to work with certain buyers than with others. What is the kind of mix that has been profitable? So when you project for the future, you will go after those mixers or those buyers that give you a better return. It doesn't mean that you may not reject others, but you might focus more on what is more profitable. If you cannot find that, then you go to the second most profitable item. Now, you can't do this if you don't analyze the past. Okay. Next thing, cash flow and financial indicators. So like I said earlier, when you make a sale, how long does it take to get your money? Because cash flow is important, because if you're getting your money in 3 months' time, how do you pay your workers this month? Salaries have to be paid monthly. Certain things you can say, look, you can go to the bank and say, I will pay this loan, give me 2 months, and they'll say, okay, we'll look at your cash flow, you're getting money in 2 months, okay, we'll allow you 2 months. Can you do that with your water and electricity? I don't know. The government in Sri Lanka, the government will come and cut your electricity and say, well, bad luck for you, my friend. If you didn't pay the bill, no electricity. right? So, so we need to plan, match what is coming in with what is going out. And then we need to also look at some financial indicators. Now, I know this is, we don't usually do this with SCORE, right? There is no, none of the 5 modules have this. But I'm talking about a new normal scenario situation. And if companies say, look, can you help me to see what's wrong with my company? How can I survive? How can I, stay afloat? These are things that are going to be useful for you. And that's why this is included in this presentation. We got to look at earnings per machine per day. How much are you earning per machine per day? Now that is anyway, whether in whatever situation, it is good to look at earnings per machine per day. And if you are losing, then it is not ideal. Sometimes in these days and age, with restricted people coming to work, you might say, look, okay, if I work 25% of my machines, how much do I earn per day? Or you might find that, the best is if I can work 45% of my machines per day. Because you need to at least break even, but you need to maximize your return on a machine. Sales margins. What are your sales margins? What is your quick asset ratio? Current assets to current liabilities, less the stock. So one is what we call the current ratio, and the other one is called the quick asset ratio or the acid test ratio. So these things are, very easy to find. You Google it, and you will see, if you have a quick asset ratio of 0.8:1, that is good. That's where it should be, right? Assets to liabilities, current assets to current liabilities. Your assets should be greater than your liabilities, but you can calculate that and see where you stand. Or are your liabilities greater than your assets? Then you are in a bit of trouble. Similarly, gearing ratio. What is the company's, how much of loans has the company taken, borrowings, long-term, short-term, and see how much it is in terms of the capital that has been put in, the equity. So these are some of the indicators that will help on the financial side to help your enterprises to look at the current situation and to do something in order to improve it into the future. So generally, that's a simple way of saying this. Of course, there are other things like break even and return on investment and things which I'm really not going into now. But at least, the order book, analyzing the past and projecting the future, looking at profitable product lines or mixes is important, and also seeing what your cash flow is like. Can you survive the next few months? How is the cash coming in? How is the cash going out? And what is remaining at the end of the month? How do you, if nothing is remaining, how do you finance that? Is your bank or other financial institutions, or are there sort of associations, or whoever is there somebody who is going to finance the shortfall, and at what percentage? You need to put that percentage because you're going to pay interest on that. So then, is it profitable to run the business? How should you run the business? This is useful whether you're running micro or SME. It is still all useful. So Also, when you do your cash flow today because of COVID, there are a lot of other things that have to be taken into consideration. You need more things like, you have to provide masks. You need to provide shields, face shields. You might need to provide a much more soap than what you ever provided for people to wash their hands. You need to fix a lot more sinks. Your water bill is going to go up a lot compared to before. Then maybe hand sanitizers and that kind of stuff is going to go up. All that must be taken into this cash flow calculations. And you make a profit and loss account. You make budget it for 1 year, but at least get it fairly accurate for the next 3 to 6 months. So that's really what I have to say about it. We can open it for questions again.
Silakan Bapak Ibu, jika ada pertanyaan atau masukan, saran, sharing pengalaman mungkin. Seems like no question, but at this slide, maybe later. Oke, kalau nggak ada, kita bisa continue. We can continue ya, Pak Jayanta. Maybe have no question yet.
Okay, right.
Yeah,
So let's, yeah. I hope people didn't get too scared about the financial situation, but without finance, it's difficult to do business, and without understanding that, a lot of companies actually get into trouble, or they don't work to their potential because they don't seriously look at this area. So this is a key area. Business is all about making profits and rupees and cents at the end of the day. Okay, right. So let's continue. Now, in terms of this, we are talking about the new normal. We need to look at some projects for consideration. Now, these projects are looked at in terms of looking at the enterprise's continuity, growth, and sustainability, right? So, for example, we talk about business continuity projects. Projects that will help, that if the company takes it on, is going to help to continue the business. So one such, I can give you a few examples, things which I have done for some of the projects around the world, is these are, multi-skilling. Does a company have a plan for multi-skilling its workers? Because why do we need multi-skilling? Because, for example, we don't know who might come to work tomorrow. We don't know when people will get sick. Sometimes certain areas, we speak about these lockdowns and things, somebody may not be able to get to work. So then how does our business run? If that skill is not there, how do we continue to do that production or that quality or whatever that? So it's good that we train people to do more than one or two things that they otherwise would have done in the normal situation. So that's why we need to have a multi-skilling plan. Then we need to look at, in order to continue our business, earlier I spoke about, looking at doing things like making latex gloves for a company that's dealing with that kind of products as a new line. Or, if you are in the sewing business now, a lot of hospitals need sort of operating theater or surgical gowns and things like that. So what about new product development? Do you have a unit or a project on new product development? We spoke about just a little while ago about the e-commerce side, the e-platforms with developing databases and things like that. That's another project that will help business continuity. We spoke about, in the last slide, we spoke about cash flows and projections and analyzing the past. That is another project that you can look under business continuity. Then we come to the projects that we can choose in terms of worker safety. Now, earlier there would have been not much of a distance between the workers at the place of work, but now, I don't know how it is in Indonesia again, but in some other countries, they say that you have to maintain at least so much of distance between one worker and another, and the factory inspectors come and check these things. So that's another project to take on and see how we can adapt to this situation. It's like, for example, when you go to the hospital, even now, though earlier everybody used to sit next to each other, but now, if you go to the hospital, you will see that in the row of chairs, one you can sit, the next two, they put a cross, don't sit those two. So sit in the third chair. So how do we do this, or how should we do this in terms of our workplace? What about implementing a project? You can tell people, wear your mask, wear your shield, wash your hands. But sometimes they don't do it. So that's another project. We need to find out ways and means of people to understand why it is necessary and how they can do it. So again, to do with worker safety. Maybe it's safer to get your people picked up, like I said earlier, have some buses running on certain routes where your staff are, where your workers are, and pick them up and bring them to work, and at the end of the day, drop them back home. At least you're sure that in the transport, they are not going to get sick. And also, what companies have found is that when this transport is provided, people are now actually coming on work on time to work. So therefore, productivity has improved because of that. So another project is, like we spoke about on the E side. How about creating contact groups or maybe WhatsApp groups or whatever, so that the supervisor in the section has everybody's e-contacts, and then the manager has the supervisor's contacts. So this message keeps pervading down. And I'm not only talking about COVID related, but this can be used for other things: company information, productivity, quality, safety, various things. So, so this is another project that you can consider in factories. We spoke about cost reduction, so we can have some cost reduction projects. Now, I think you have a lot of good experience in doing cost reduction in the SCORE program, and I'm sure these are to do with reducing the energy cost of a section of the entire plant. Then looking at machine breakdowns and idle times and things like that. Then, like I said earlier, looking at cost per machine per day and seeing, how we can reduce that, reduce the cost, increase the earnings. Okay, so every time we reduce costs, we in effect are actually increasing earnings. So we can have different projects to reduce costs. Productivity improvement projects are the other important thing. So, and together also, if we can take productivity and quality enhancement projects. So these are things like, for example, how long does it take to produce a sample? I think most businesses, manufacturing businesses, when the customer places an order, first they want to see a sample. How long does it take to produce that sample and give it to the customer? Lesser time, the chances of getting the order is much better. Then requisition fulfillment times. When an order is placed from a certain section in the company, how long does the stores take to put that order together and provide the necessary inputs that are needed for that section or unit? Then we can look at output per employee, or we can look at output per section. Now, when we talk of output, we are talking of good quality outputs, not the ones with rejects. Okay, so likewise, we can also look at what is the we spoke about previously. I think we spoke about DHU, defects per 100 unit. How can we bring those defects per 100 unit, reduce them? Okay, so there are a lot of projects that we can actually consider in this area, and we can see there are different areas, so that your company is always going to have interesting things to do. What's something also is that this works perfectly with our SCORE project, because you have your enterprise improvement team, you have your enterprise improvement plan. So EIT, EIP can take care of all these things. And it is always important to take projects to make people understand the usefulness of the project and create some excitement and motivation, so that then the project becomes like interesting and it becomes fun to do it. And then when results start coming, the people are so motivated that they just keep on keep improving the results. So, so that's a little bit of idea of how we can choose projects for the enterprise's continuity, growth, and sustainability. Right. So with that, let's see if there are any questions.
Ya, lagi silakan Bapak Ibu. Jika ada yang ingin bertanya, ya.
Saya ada
Silakan.
pertanyaan.
Silakan Ibu. Ya. Nah, Ibu Judith.
Ya.
Ya,
Yes,
silakan Ibu
please.
Judith.
Hi.
Ini tentang financial scenario building. Ya, Pak Jayanta bercerita tentang party yang akan diselenggarakan. Orang tua atau ibu bapak menanyakan berapa yang akan datang, 10 atau 25. Nah, saya memikirkan juga bahwa bukan hanya jumlah 10 dan 25, tetapi yang mana yang memiliki
Can I
kecenderungan.
just say something? I'm hearing both languages, so I'm not able to.
Ya.
You go to
Maaf.
English
Jadi,
apa ya?
oh baik. Ya, maaf. Saya bicara bahasa Indonesia aja ya, atau ya itu aja ya. Oke. Saya lanjutkan. Bisa? Oke. Nah,
Yes.
Antara jumlah 10 dan jumlah 25 itu kemudian memunculkan pertanyaan. Yang mana yang memiliki peluang untuk terjadi lebih besar? Apakah akan terjadi yang lebih sedikit, kondisi pesimistik, ataukah akan terjadi kondisi yang lebih optimis, yaitu akan lebih banyak yang datang? Dalam bisnis, tampaknya itu menjadi suatu problem. Di satu sisi, kita melihat data ke belakang. Data ke belakang itu perlu dianalisis. Tetapi apa yang akan terjadi dengan berapa besar peluang? Apakah optimis atau yang akan pesimis? Atau yang orang mengatakan yang most likely? Nah itu bagaimana ya Pak Jayanta? Terima kasih.
Right. So interesting question, Judith. So you're very correct there. You know, when we do scenario building, it's like, you know, okay, should we cater to 10 people coming for the party, or should we cater to 25 people coming for the party? So similarly, in the business, should we cater to the most or to the worst situation, being pessimistic? You know, I think we'll only get 2 orders for the next 3 months. And on the other hand, no, you know, like this buyer has contacted, that buyer has contacted somebody, they've sent the samples. So it's likely that we are going to get 5 orders, you know? So we have 2 different scenarios. Now we have to, based on the business, I'm just saying based on the business, we have to see some indications. And that goes back into the past as well, analyzing the past. If you see buyer B, every time buyer B has given us a sample, he has placed an order, right? But buyer C gives us 5 samples, and then he'll place 1 order. Okay, so now we have to look at, you know, our scenario and see, we have to take an average. So now, though we have, like, there are inquiries for 10 orders, it seems like, you know, these 6 orders are the ones that are going to come. Now, because we have computers, we can build the scenario for 10 orders. It's not a problem. But on the next spreadsheet, we are building the sales forecast only for 6 orders. But maybe seems like, you know, the pandemic is getting really bad in such and such a country, and therefore we are not going to be able to, you know, to get the raw material or deliver or something like that. So it's very likely that we are only going to have 3 orders. That's the worst case scenario. Now that's why we call it financial scenario building. So there is no right and wrong answer to this. We must have all 3 scenarios. But when we look at the data, we might say we need to go on the most likely scenario. So most likely scenario is we are going to only get 6 orders. We are not going to get 10 orders. Well, very good if we get, but we might only get 6. And we have to watch the situation. You can't build the scenario and then close the computer and wait till, no, we can't do that. We have to keep looking at the newspaper, listening to the news. Okay, the situation that was supposed to be bad last week, now they have managed to sort it out, you know. So, or that there was a, you know, problem with the shipping problem, they have now sorted it out. The 2 countries have signed an agreement. So now, right, the shipping problem is okay. So we have to keep looking at this and keep updating. It's not a once and for all story, right? So I hope that answers the question, Judith. Very good question, and I hope I gave you the good answer for that.
Thank you.
Right, great. Please ask more questions. You see, when you ask questions, you get others also benefit, and they, you know, everybody knowledge improves.
Yeah.
Yes, any other questions?
Ya, Pak Is, ya.
Ya, Isnanto.
Ya, terima kasih Pak Pasur Pak Jayanta. Iya, saya melihat penjelasan terkait dengan mempertimbangkan project continuity, tetapi saya melihat kok pendekatan analisisnya lebih ke internal. Nah, pertanyaan saya Pak Jayanta, bagaimana tidak mempertimbangkan faktor eksternal yang memungkinkan sekali akan berdampak terhadap keberhasilan bagaimana kita bisa mempertahankan bisnis kita. Terima kasih.
Right. So when we look at the assessments, Isnanto, you remember the first slide that I did today? That was to do with the enterprise risk assessment and the current status assessment. In that, what I showed you was the key areas. And but if you saw in the risk assessment, we had stakeholders or something like that, right? And and in the other assessment, there are actually 50, you know, the one that I had done for another country, we had about 15 sub areas. So in total, we are looking at not only the internal, but we are also looking at the external. So that there are things that are internal that affect us, and there are things that are external also that will affect our business. There are things that we don't have control over, which is outside, like government regulations, trade union action, health regulations. We have to, those are also taken into consideration in the assessments that that I showed you. Does that help, Isnanto?
Yeah.
I think
Okay.
Isnanto is the only person here other than my team whom I have met personally a very long time ago. Yeah. I remember
Thank you,
visiting
Mr.
factories.
Jayanta. Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember you.
It's
Thank
some
you
good
very much,
times.
Mr. Jayanta. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So shall we move on to the next area?
Yes, Pak. I think so. Yeah.
Right. Right. Now, this is nothing new for you, right? We are talking about, I mean, KPIs, EICs, all these help to make factual decisions. Now, the word factual decisions is very important because most times, Isnanto also will know this when we visited factories, you know, people just scratch their head and say, I think defect rate is it's about 7%. But they don't have the data to show that. So that's why if they had the data, then they will say, oh, it's not 7%, actually it is 24%, right? And then they will do something about it. So that's why we use KPIs and EICs to make decisions. So now these are things, these are things but I just want to once again tell you that these 3 globally implemented key score tools are the most important tools, whether you're working in small, medium, micro, large enterprises. Enterprise level, they need to have these tools continuing and working. One is the enterprise improvement team. You know that this should be cross-hierarchical, cross-functional, gender balanced, and it should be inclusive. When I say inclusive, you know what this means. In the ILO, we talk about inclusiveness. Maybe the person is disabled on a wheelchair. If the person is the right person to be in the EIT, well, the person must be there. We need to have the union representative in the EIT, So like that today, there are so many areas of where we should look, and we should not discriminate. We spoke about discrimination the previous day. So we should not discriminate. The EIT should be actually consisting of the right people. The enterprise improvement plan is the weekly plan that leads the CI efforts, the continuous improvement efforts. If you don't have a proper EIP, all these work and all these projects are going to get lost. Those of you with experience and with successful stories will find that the companies that had the EIT meetings and maintained a proper enterprise improvement plan weekly became successful. They completed more projects. They got good results. Am I correct? So the next thing is the enterprise indicator card. Now, we started off those days, SCORE started off, we had what we call the EIC, or the enterprise indicator card, which had something like 12 to 15 indicators. But now we have what we call the KPI catalog, right? So we have about 60 KPIs in that catalog. So you can choose based on the projects that you are doing and select the correct KPI. So whether we are talking of EICs or KPIs, the idea is about measurement. It's about measuring continuously, analyzing those results and taking corrective action. So how I say today is that every project that is taken up must at least have, or I would say have, 2 KPIs. If we are talking of stores project, we might talk of area saved, and we might talk of retrieval time. Okay, because when we monitor those weekly or monthly, we know whether we are making some progress or not. So those are your, that is your catalog of KPIs. So your catalog of KPIs for enterprise X can be slightly different of your catalog of KPIs for enterprise Y. Now, what is the difference between the KPIs and the EIC? The KPIs, you might have 40, 50 KPIs. If you have 20 projects, it's likely that you might have 40 KPIs. The KPIs are looked at the operational level mostly, but also it is also looked at senior level also. if you need to find it. But the EIC is the collection. Like if we take, let's say, the N-line defect rate. Now we can take the 4 lines in the factory and we take all 4 lines and average it. And that's the figure that we are going to put in the EIC. The EIC can be looked at by the senior management or the CEO of the company. It's basically like looking at the dashboard in your vehicle. You see only a few things, but the few critical things. And that will tell you what is the health of the company. So that's what I explained. EIP is a project-based EIP. The outcomes are measured by the KPIs. There's a score catalog of KPIs, whereas the EIC is used by CEO and senior management, includes 12 to 15 company-wide indicators. The outcome is a dashboard view of company health, like you see what is here. This is, you know, whether how is the HR at a glance? How is the on-time delivery? How is the defect rates? How is the efficiency? How is the, how many projects have been completed? And what is the absenteeism and turnover rate? So that's all basically, and how many accidents. That's basically all the top management or the CEO has time to look at. If he wants more detail, he will call for the KPIs and he will go down and say, what is the problem? Why has our defect rate gone up? Why has our efficiency rate come down? Or where has the efficiency rate gone up? Who is doing a good job? Which line? So the important thing is that you use these tools to get correct facts. And because you have correct facts, people can make correct, timely decisions which are well informed. So, so that's the idea of having these indicators. We can go for any quick questions that anyone might have. Any questions, or should we just keep continuing? The first rule. Am I online or not offline?
You are online, but Jayanta.
Oh, right, okay. So I didn't get any answers. I was wondering whether I was talking to just my computer, you know? Right.
I think we can continue.
So do we have any?
Oh, sorry. Pak Isnanto probably have question.
No. Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So do you want me to continue?
Yes, please, Pak Jayanta.
Or should we change the rules of the game, since I have all these, or everybody online? Should I ask them some questions instead? Okay, I won't do that today, but maybe another time. Right. So let's move on. Right. Our next topic is what I call is building in Kaizen. Now, this word Kaizen is used everywhere, all over the place. Some people understand what it is, some people really don't understand what it is. And but I'm sure the trainers here understand what it is because you've been through this program. So, but just to, this is, we are trying to look at going from micro to SMEs. And a key tool, I can't call it a tool, but it is more a way of, conducting your daily life, your personal life, or the life in the enterprise, is by looking towards improving something. If you don't improve your personal self, you will fall sick. If a company doesn't keep improving itself, it will fail to be competitive, and it might even close down, right? So just the basic thing is Kai is Japanese. Kai means change, and Zen is better. So basically change for the better is what we have been told. So Kaizen, when you change for the better, is continuous improvement. So you see, I have put this like this. It's a stepped approach, but ultimately we are improving. Overall, we are sort of improving. And this continuous improvement should be done by everyone. It should be done every day, and it should be done everywhere. Now, those are three nice words, but what does it mean by everyone? Most times when I have visited companies all over the world, and sometimes, when I'm seated in the meeting room or the boardroom, tea is served, coffee is served, something is served. And then the reaction that I see is the factory does not treat the person who serves the tea and the coffee and who does all that as a part of the company. So when sometimes I have said, why don't we get this person also into the EIT? And then they say, no, it's persons just making the coffee and the tea, that's all. But there are some companies that have put that person also into the EIT. And the story is that I can tell you is that I have seen this in more than one company where that person is also a member of the EIT. That person has a lot of good things to share. Why? Because that person is the only person who goes to all the sections in the company every day to serve tea to the managers. So that person also can contribute to continuous improvement. Everyone. So everyone can contribute. Another thing is, people say, oh, we don't get the finance. Anybody from finance? No, we don't get them into the EIT. Those people, they have nothing to do with production. No? But having them in the EIT, one representative from finance is also useful. So everyone can do CI. It needs to be done every day. We need to think, what can we do different today? How can I improve this? That is the mindset that has to be created and given to the enterprise by us who are trainers and facilitators. That's one of the first few lessons that we need to do in our first few visits. If we do that, they start thinking differently. Sometimes I just ask, what did you do new today? So I say, then they look at me like, so I tell them, don't worry, no, not only in the factory, even did you do anything even new at home? Then the answer is same old, means everything is the same, nothing has changed. So the result is also the same. So that is why we say this is applicable for everyone, every day and everywhere, any place. Okay. So doing the same thing gets you the same result. So what can you do differently today? Companies that seriously engage in driving this process, not, when I say driving this process, not like with a carrot and a stick or with a stick, but who give a lot of credibility to this, who talk about it, who encourage this, who, have discussions around it. Those people, as they keep doing change and they keep improving gradually, that's what we ultimately come towards talking about being lean. Because improvement basically here is we are reducing waste. Whether we like it or not, we are reducing waste. We are cutting down time. We are cutting down the process that is not helpful. We are cutting down unnecessary motion in actually doing some activity. We are throwing away the junk. Because we throw away the junk, we are easily able to find things quicker. When we throw away the junk, we are finding more space. With that more space, we are making things better and more organized. So this leads to the process of being lean. So that's what building Kaizen means. You need to talk about it and you need to build it into the system. It's not something that you can just go and paste on the wall and say, this is Kaizen, now do Kaizen from tomorrow. It's not going to happen. It has to be built into the actions of the company, the processes of the company. We are doing the same order, the same style 3 months later. Last time we took, let's say, 2 hours to produce one piece, the throughput time. Should we take 2 hours this time also because it's the same thing? Or should we take less than 2 hours? If we are taking less than 2 hours, that means we have done something to improve. And then we also can use this model, the PDCA, which is plan, do, check, act. So we need to plan the activities. We need to take considerable time to plan. Then we need to execute, we need to do it, we need to implement it. After implementing or while implementing, we need to check and see what's going on. Are we getting the desired result? If not, what action should we take to improve it? And that again becomes a plan. And then you would have heard that, once you keep doing this and you see that it is successful, you would have heard of the SDCA. S stands for standardize. So now we standardize the way we are going to do it. Does it end there when we standardize? No. The standard may be X number of units are needed for input. But as we cut off the waste, then we say the standard is now not X number of units, but now it has become Y number of units. It's improved. So we need to build in Kaizen. Whether you're talking about micro, small, medium, whatever, this process can be implemented. But again, as trainers, I'm continuously saying this, as trainers, as facilitators, we need to create that environment and help the enterprise do this thing and build it into their minds that we can improve even in a very, very, very small way. If we are improving, we are doing better than yesterday. So that's basically what I have to say about Kaizen. Are there any questions that you need to ask? You are very familiar with this next slide. Building Kaizen is continuous improvement through waste elimination, throwing away waste. You can, if you carefully look at this slide, which I'm sure you would have done, throwing away waste is, or throwing away excess, is like actually throwing away money because you have already paid for that. When you buy metal or plastic granules, or you buy fabric, or you buy sheets of wood, you're paying for that sheet that you're buying, for the entire sheet. And if you are making only 80% use of that, you are actually throwing away 20% of your money into the bin. So that's why we are saying elimination, waste elimination. I already explained that we need to involve everyone in this process, involving everyone in this process, which ultimately means we go back to the basics, workplace cooperation. So you see, we may have gone a long way, discussed a lot of things, but ultimately we are coming back to workplace cooperation. That is the core, that is the center of this whole exercise that we have been doing. And if we do these things, continuously improve through waste elimination, involving everybody, using workplace cooperation, then what the enterprise gets is customer satisfaction and long-term business success. And really that is what, as a facilitator, you are trying to achieve for each of these enterprises that you are going to serve. That is the objective. And they will be ever grateful and thankful to you forever because you have helped them to improve themselves and improve their business. So that's it that I have to share at this point in time. So we can actually, do we have any questions at this point on the CI aspect, or any questions of how we should do this? We are well within the time limit, so please don't worry.
Ya. Silakan Bapak Ibu jika ada pertanyaan atau isu-isu yang mau didiskusikan, silakan. Kita masih ada waktu yang masih lama, jadi masih bisa berdiskusi. Atau mungkin setelah Pak Jayanta selesai, you still have one more slide left, Pak.
Okay, so
Okay, we can continue, I think, Pak. Yeah, then we open the floor for participants.
sure. Right. So now, how will the enterprise benefit by all of these things that we have been speaking over the last 2 days? As a SCORE facilitator, you are going to be able to introduce a robust process to improve enterprises. You are the catalyst. You're the one who is going to bring about change. You're the one who is going to talk about this language. You're the one who is going to impart the knowledge. You're the one who is going to get them motivated. You're the one who is going to put in this, drive this system. And then they are going to take it on step by step from you each day. You're going to get it done through them, and they are going to own it. You're not going to own it, but they are going to own it. So you're going to help them to have a robust process to improve their enterprise. You're going to be able to implement SCORE through, you see, we came back to workplace cooperation for employees and management to improve their quality, their productivity, safety, HR, and stuff in the workplace. They're going to be able to reduce the material waste, cycle time, eliminate the inefficient costs. Remember the team booths, the lean process. So that's going to help. You're going to support enterprise actions using proven tools and techniques. All these things which we spoke about are tools and techniques that have worked in more than one place in the world through this SCORE program. You're going to drive measurement. Remember the word fact-based improvements in the workplace by applying the key indicators, KPIs, EICs, whatever. So that's the way it's going to be measured, and you're going to see where did you start and where did the enterprise, where did they progress to. So that's the entire presentation for these 2 days. We can go back to asking questions. Right, the floor is yours. 32 people out there. Please ask questions. We have something like about almost 25 minutes. We kept some time for questions because my team said, you know, these people, they really will have a lot of good questions to ask you. So yeah, here we are.
Mas Fasrul, if time is still available, I would like also to place a question, Mas Fasrul.
Oke, Ibu Rini, silakan Ibu.
Oke, ya, halo Jayanta, I'm Rini. I also follow your explanation, and also I interested to your slide about the projects. If you don't mind, could you back to your slide about the projects? Yeah, I think after the financial scenario.
Yes. You want me to project it up there? Will it be better?
Yeah, the projects like for cost reduction projects and etc.
Yeah. Okay. Here it is.
Yeah. Yes.
Are you
this,
able to see? Right.
Yes. Yes, this one. That's right. Yeah, Jayanta. For these projects, do you think it will also create cost impact? Yeah, I mean, because like a business continuity projects, if it is in regard to the health.
Just a minute, I can't quite hear you because there is background noise
Yes.
somewhere.
Yes, I am now in a public place. Sorry for that.
Okay, right, okay.
Yeah. So
Right.
what should I do? Should I continue or maybe I will write in the chat box?
Yes, so Rini, what I'm told is for you to speak in Indonesian, Bahasa, and it will be translated for me in English so that I will be able to hear clearly.
Okay. Just a minute. Test. Hello.
Okay. Please speak
Yeah.
in
Okay.
Bahasa.
Ya, so di slide ini, apakah semua proyek ini ada konsekuensi biaya, gitu ya? Karena kadang, misalnya saat ini dalam situasi pandemik, itu ada proyek di perusahaan, ada proyek tentang bagaimana menghindari resiko COVID gitu ya, itu pasti ada konsekuensi terhadap biaya. Ini langsung ditranslate ya, saya nggak dengar yang bahasa Indonesianya soalnya. Sorry. Aman ya Mas?
Oke. Ini simultaneously.
Okay.
Right. So Rini, yes,
Yeah.
you're right.
Okay.
To do with this.
Oke, Mbak, thank you. Ya, saya lanjutkan sedikit lagi. Ya, karena banyak juga perusahaan yang invest karena karena untuk safety misalnya, kemudian untuk productivity atau quality, mereka melakukan investasi, tapi tidak berdampak pada income yang bertambah gitu. Situasi sekarang seperti itu. Nah, bagaimana menurut Jayanta ketika kita ke SMEs, kemudian ya bagaimana kita deal dengan situasi seperti ini? Gitu. Terima kasih.
That's a very good question, Rini. Because with this pandemic situation, on one side, companies are struggling because they don't have orders and buyers, and they don't have income. And then on the other side, the health authorities and the government is saying, hey, you got to wear masks. You got to, have wash basins for people to wash their hands and whatnot. You need to provide the face shields. You need to do various things. Now, where is the money for these small guys to do these things? So here's the situation, Rini. If you don't do that, sometimes the authorities are going to come and seal your company because you're not following the government regulations. Now, I don't know whether that happens seriously in Indonesia or not, but in some of the countries, if the workers or if the boss or if the company does not follow those procedures, they come and shut the company and lock the gates and say, look, you can't operate, So then there are things that there is support that is provided by different maybe in some countries the government, In some countries, those come as tax benefits or tax reductions, where or tax write-offs, where if you did these things, you can write it off against your tax and pay reduced tax. But immediately it can affect your cash flow. So it's like a chicken and egg situation, really. It's like, do I want to get my company fully shut, or do I find some money and do the basics that the government is asking me to do, or the health authorities, and continue my business even in a 50% capacity. So this is kind of like, this is a problem that was faced globally across all our developing countries or countries in Asia. We all had these problems, and these are some of the questions that even in the other programs, when we were in the height of the pandemic, when we were doing these programs, enterprises, now here you all are trainers, but they are the enterprises kept asking us. And well, we can't say, you forget about the government regulation and the health authorities regulation, go ahead. We can't say that. So sometimes, yes, you have to spend a little bit of money and do that. And that is where we spoke about the cash flow and the financial statements. If you analyze those and see, and I said, have a separate area for the COVID related costs in your statement, then you are able to see how much of these do I have to do? Do I have to do all these in 1 month? Or can I do, can I spread it over, do these developments as and when, depending on my orders and depending on how many people I need to have in the factory? When I get more orders, then I'll fix more wash basins and put more taps and buy more masks. But right now, I don't need 200 to cater to 200 people. Right now, I only need to cater to 50 people. So we need to be prudent, and we need to be able to work in the best possible way in order not to stop our business, but to be able to start continuing. So that's probably the best answer that I can give you.
Okay.
Does that answer the question that you asked?
Thank you. Yeah.
Right, Rini. Who else? Anyone else can ask a question?
Yes, Pak Jayanta, Ibu Ari just now raised her hand.
Oh, okay.
Ask the question, Ibu Ari. Silakan, Ibu Ari.
Yeah. Yes, please.
Baik, terima kasih.
Pak Jayanta, maybe better you close the sharing screen first.
Okay, I didn't hear that. Right, okay.
Baik, terima kasih. Selamat sore, Pak Jayanta. Jadi saya ingin sedikit sharing dan
Good afternoon.
Ya, baik. Kami dari BLK Semarang 2 di Semarang itu beberapa perusahaan memang untuk kita masuk ke perusahaan itu harus protokol kesehatan. Baik untuk perusahaan, hotel atau restoran itu ada aturannya. Sehingga perusahaan-perusahaan itu harus memenuhi aturan protokol kesehatan, sehingga setiap kita datang ke sana harus menunjukkan kartu peduli karena harus sudah divaksin begitu. Kemudian beberapa perusahaan memang hampir sebagian besar terdampak COVID, tapi juga ada beberapa perusahaan yang terdampak COVID, tapi misalnya sebagai salah satu contoh garment akan beralih ke pembuatan masker. Yang tadinya garment membuat baju atau kemeja beralih kepada masker. Kemudian yang kedua, ada beberapa perusahaan untuk meningkatkan produktivitas, salah satunya adalah menekan pemborosan atau reject. Salah satunya adalah menerapkan TQC, Total Quality Control, dan juga penerapan 5S di tempat kerja. Di sini ada kelompok-kelompok karyawan di mana mereka menyelesaikan masalah, kemudian juga mencari solusinya. Nah, ini yang dilakukan oleh perusahaan-perusahaan karena dampak COVID yang luar biasa, tapi ada upaya yang bisa dilakukan oleh perusahaan seperti itu. Kemudian setelah itu perusahaan akan melihat hasilnya dari solusi yang sudah masalah yang sudah dilakukan itu, berapa sih pemborosan yang sudah ditekan seperti itu. Nah, yang jadi kendala kadang-kadang pada saat kita mau melakukan skor itu pada saat mengundang daripada manajer atau pimpinannya itu biasanya tidak datang, sehingga untuk menerapkan itu butuh harus kita datang lagi untuk bisa menjelaskan apa sih pentingnya skor dan sebagainya. Padahal manfaatnya sangat luar biasa. Tapi itu semuanya sudah bisa berjalan dengan baik kalau kita sudah mencoba mendapatkan hasilnya. Sehingga kami di Jawa Tengah itu salah satu upaya yang bisa dilakukan adalah membimbing perusahaan untuk bisa bagaimana membentuk total quality control, berarti unsur-unsur cycle, gugus kendali mutu kalau bahasa Indonesia seperti itu. Atau juga menerapkan kerjasama di tempat kerja yaitu 5S. Nah, hasilnya itu luar biasa dan semuanya itu dengan menggunakan metode skor. Jadi ada pelatihan, kemudian bimbingan, kemudian juga mempresentasikan hasilnya. Itu yang dilakukan oleh BLK Semarang II, sehingga COVID itu lampan-lampan akan hilang dengan cara meningkatkan produktivitas. Salah satunya seperti itu. Terima kasih. Selamat sore.
Thank you for that, and it's very encouraging to know that there's a lot of good work that is going on from your side, and that companies are definitely going to benefit. Yes, we see that sometimes companies are a bit reluctant. They're a little scared. They take a little bit of time to understand what these people are really trying to say. Are they coming to find fault with us? You see, because in the history of our countries, what has happened is, we have always been ruled by a foreign power, whether it is in your country or my country, or all our Asian countries, most of our Asian countries, we have been under some foreign power. So when the authorities and also the authorities or someone you are called up, they think, oh, they are calling us to find fault with us. So people are a little scared. But I think that phenomenon is moving off now. It's getting much less. And as they realize that actually you are there to help them, and they are seeing results of other companies who have participated, that those other people are improving, they begin to join and have more confidence, and certainly they will adopt and accept the score methodology and the support that you are trying to give them out there. So I think what I would say is continue to do the good work and continue to share all these things. You are every day picking up new things. And, that's a big help and a big service that you're doing to, you're not just doing it to a company. When I visit companies, I don't think of the building or the machines or basically, the owner of the company. Yes, I think of the owner of the company, but more than that, I think of the people who are working in that company. How are they going to benefit? How is their life going to improve? So I think what you're doing from yourself and others and the institute that you are from and all that is a great job. And it's always a process that is going to grow and improve. So from my side, that's a great job, and thank you very much for sharing that.
Terima kasih, Bu Ari. Baik, Bapak Ibu sekalian, apakah masih ada yang mau sharing lagi atau juga pertanyaan? Silakan. Kita masih ada waktu. We still have time, Pak Yanta ya. Ya, silakan Bapak Ibu sekalian. Mungkin ada yang mau sharing pengalaman. Nah, Ibu, Mbak Elizabeth, silakan Mbak Elizabeth.
Pakai bahasa Indonesia atau bahasa Inggris nih sekarang?
Gimana enaknya?
Oke, saya mungkin pakai bahasa Inggris ya, mungkin ya. Atau Indonesia?
Okay.
Pak Janta, which one is better, do you think?
I don't understand Indonesian, so it's all right if he speaks in English. So
okay.
I'm fine. Yeah, I think we can save some time.
Yeah, I think I don't have a question, but also I'm not sharing my experience, but I'm sharing my a bit of a slightly concern of how we can how we can help the companies to pull them out of this difficult situation, because from your presentation today, we all see that this COVID, this pandemic, it's a kind of like a never-ending stories, at least until now. And we still cannot see what will be coming in the next year even. So for me personally, I feel like this is quite a great challenge for us, especially as a trainer and coach, because then we normally see directly at their work floor and then help them to improve the productivity. But now we also need to improve ourselves to help them also see beyond that, more into their business, more into their financial situation and things. So for me, watching your presentation, it feels like for a business plan, we cannot expect them to have something firm even in the next 1 year. They need to have that flexibility, like 3 months, things might be changing, their business plan might be adjusted, and so we are as well, I think. So yeah, I just hoping that it's we can still able to motivate the company going through this pandemic, but also we need to get ourselves motivated as well. I think that's all that that probably I would share today, Pak Jayanta.
Yeah, so Elizabeth, you said something very important, and coming from you, from Indonesia, from what is happening down there. You see, what I heard the other day from the World Health Organization, I think the director of something or the other was speaking, and he said, don't think that we will get rid of COVID. We have not even got rid of the flu that we get, because the flu has come and we have been having the flu, and we all get the flu, and every year people die also from the flu. So COVID is going to stay. That's what he is basically trying to say. But we have to find ways and means of overcoming the challenge. And as I see it, I think I mentioned earlier that two countries, the UK and the US, today I saw in the newspapers, they have approved this tablet where you can treat yourself at home. So it's like when we get a headache, we are going to take a Panadol or an aspirin or something like that. When somebody says we have COVID, okay, we are going to take those tablets and we are going to go on with life. But here is the thing. We don't know how soon it's going to be accessible for us. We don't know how fast it's going to be accessible to the people who are working in factories, how it can be bought. Is the government going to dish that also out? How are they going to give it? We don't know. We have no idea when it is going to happen either. But how I look at this situation, Elizabeth and everybody here, is if we want to improve quality and productivity and HR and things like that, if we are going to do that, we must have the company to go and do that. Do you understand? We must have a company that's running to be able to go and do that. If we don't have the companies, how can we do that? So the first thing is to make sure that the companies survive. So my presentation today was on the strategies and the systems and the techniques and the tools and you name it, of how we can first look at, if the patient doesn't survive, if the patient dies, then no point in talking about nutrition and exercise and all that. The patient is dead. The first thing is, how does the patient survive? How do we help these companies to look at the future? How do we help them to do a small, simple business plan? It might change next week. It might change next month. In 3 months' time, you have to change quite a bit of it. But if you don't do that, you will be perished. So I think once we do that, and we have the tools, we have the SCORE tools and the SCORE systems to be able to still do those things. So I'm building this around SCORE. When this pandemic came, I was helping 2-3 countries, and suddenly I couldn't travel to those countries. Those people could not go to work. The UN, the ILO officers in those countries said trainers cannot go to the field. So, like last year, between like about the months of May and about November, we were figuring out what to do, how to make these companies survive. And that's when we developed all these new tools. We each did things based on these countries. And I couldn't have told you all this story if Fazrul had this session with me and I wanted this thing last November. I couldn't have done this because I also was looking for things to do. The ILO was looking for things to do. But today we have done certain things and we have helped. And some of these companies that that were in our program, which looked like almost closing, because we did some of these things, and because not because we did, but because we were able to help them to do it, they started suddenly finding alternatives. And just like somebody said, a company that's sewing shirts or sewing something started sewing masks. Another company started making these gowns. Those are not their normal orders, but they were able to at least earn some money. And they were not making profits, but at least they could pay those salaries and tide over the time. So I think this is a situation that we are going to face. It's not going away right now. And our job is to keep as many companies afloat and help them, because without that, we are not going to be able to do those 5 SCORE modules. Right. So I think you touched on a very, very important thing. And I thank you for touching that, because it's because through what you're saying that I'm able to even more better explain what we are doing actually. So thank you very much for that, Elizabeth. And the day would not have been complete if you did not ask a question today.
Thank you, Pak Jayanta.
So yeah, Fazrul, I just want to say something, Fazrul, that today I made a small change in my slides and added something so that if you have already circulated it to them, you know, go through it again. And there's one slide I added today in terms of projects, because I thought the projects are the ones that are really going to be workable and useful. So add that, and then you can circulate the slides.
Okay, Pak Jayanta, please, if you can share with us, and you can send by email to me and Mbak Dewi, then we can then adjust it with the previous one that we have sent. Because we already translated into Bahasa, the previous one, and share with our colleagues.
Okay, will do. So anything else? I mean, I can spare a few minutes. I'm not in a rush to run. If you have questions to ask, that's fine with me.
Ya. Gimana Bapak Ibu? Kira-kira masih ada yang ingin menambahkan, sharing pengalaman atau bertanya juga bisa. Kalau tidak ada lagi, kebetulan slide-nya sudah selesai juga Pak Jayanta ya. Pak Jayanta, maybe you want to tell something to our trainer, maybe? Or no? For the closing, Pak, you want to tell something? Because I think there is no any questions from our colleagues anymore. Maybe you want to say something, Pak?
Okay, so what you are actually asking is for any closing remarks.
Pak Jayanta, probably before the closing, we can take a picture together. So everybody open their camera. So I will take a picture.
Sure, we can do that.
Okay, thank you. Ya Bapak Ibu, sebelum kita tutup acara bersama, kita bisa buka kameranya agar kita bisa berfoto bersama. Ya, terima kasih. Oke, kita lihat di sini hanya satu kali aja. Ya. Oke, baik kalau gitu kita mulai aja. Oke, 1, 2, 3. Ya, terima kasih Bapak Ibu.
Sudah Mbak Dewi ya?
Ya, yes, terima kasih.
Sudah. Ya. Please Pak Jayanta, you may say something for the closing remark.
So first of all, I want to thank my colleagues in Indonesia, Janua, Fazrul, and Devi. Known them for, I think, must be 10 years or more, been there to your country a few times, and had some very good experiences in the past when I was there. And I'm happy, actually today I'm very, very happy to do this program. This is, I know, the final TOT before the transition takes place. And thank you very much for asking me to do this. And also, I'm very encouraged to know that, to see that SCORE has run for, I think, 10 years or maybe a little bit more than 10 years in Indonesia, and that it has spread right across Indonesia, and a lot of trainers have been trained. A lot of trainers have come to know the SCORE methodology and the SCORE techniques, and with that, that they have been able to implement this program in a lot of enterprises across Indonesia. So that is very, very encouraging. I have seen case studies. I have seen the stuff that you all have done, very innovative things. And I'm sure a lot of companies have benefited, but like I said before, more than companies benefiting, I think what has been important is that a lot of individual workers have benefited in the companies. And I'm also sure that it goes beyond the company. Some of these workers have taken these techniques home, because I've experienced those in some of the countries where they have come and told me, we taught 5S or 1S or 2S to our children, and we have been able to save electricity and water in our own houses. So I think, when we look at all that, it's a tremendous bit of work that has been done by the team and by all of you. So though we come to the end of this TOT and maybe the transition where, the program is taken on in different forms by different associations in Indonesia, I surely think that this will not, it will not end here. You as trainers, as facilitators, are going to be our people on the ground who are going to spread this news and make Indonesia also a very productive country, bringing change to many lives. So again, thank you, all of you, for joining this program, and also for all the questions that you asked, so that you made this discussion much more productive and useful for you as well as for others. And certainly a great pleasure for me in bringing this program to you. So thank you very, very much. If any of you need to contact me for anything, you can always get in touch with me. That's not a problem at all. So thanks very much again.
Baik. Thank you also Pak Jayanta for your availability, and Bapak Ibu sekalian, kami juga dari ILO SCORE mengucapkan terima kasih buat Bapak Ibu sekalian sudah meluangkan waktu untuk hadir 2 hari pelatihan ini. Pastinya harapan kami ini bermanfaat buat kita semua, juga bermanfaat buat perusahaan-perusahaan binaan Bapak Ibu sekalian nantinya. Kami tidak lupa juga mengucapkan terima kasih kepada Mbak Weni ini sama Mbak Dinda yang sudah bergonta-ganti mentranslate dalam 2 bahasa. Juga terima kasih buat Mbak Dewi, Mbak Ria yang terus membantu kita, Mbak Eli juga terima kasih. Akhiri salam, mungkin saya mengucapkan Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Seperti Pak Jayanta tadi bilang, jika masih ada pertanyaan atau apa, kita bisa lakukan itu melalui email atau WA nantinya. Terima kasih Bapak Ibu sekalian.
Terima kasih.
Terima kasih. Bye-bye.
Terima kasih Pak Masrul semuanya. Beli, Pak Dewi.
Terima kasih semuanya.
Mas Fahrul.
Ya.
Terima kasih Pak Sarul, teman-teman semuanya.
Terima kasih.
Terima kasih Bapak Ibu. Selamat sore.
Ya. Selamat sore.
Thank you Pak Jayanta.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Nice everyone.
Yeah, thank you to the translators. Yeah, I missed that. Thank you very much. Without you, this would have not been successful.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Makasih Weni. Yo. Makasih Bu Yudi.
Terima kasih. Thank you Pak Jayanta. I'm leaving now.
Dalis, makasih banyak.
Tetap pakai bahasa Inggris.
Bandel.
Pak Jayanta bilang nggak apa-apa, menghemat waktu katanya.
Iyalah, it's okay.
Oke.
Makasih banyak, Lis.
Terima kasih Bu
Bye.
Judin. Ya, makasih Mbak Lis. Ya. Dinda makasih ya.
Iya, Dinda makasih banyak.
Weni makasih. Ayo Mbak Dewi, ya kita tutup berarti ya.
Iya, tutup
Nanti
aja.
kalau ini
Terima
kita-
kasih banyak ya Fasrul.
Iya, sama-sama Mbak Dewi, makasih
Kita
juga.
lanjut lagi
Nanti kalau ini kita
besok.
lanjut lagi.
Aku
Oke,
masih banyak
bye.
kerjaan soalnya. Makasih, yuk.